It's funny, Wall Street was my my night gig. I'll go over that in a little bit.
That's your water, by the way. If you
thank you.
All right.
You're the best. Thank you, Darren and Imran, for having me come out today, and thank you for showing up tonight. I am Vice President of the Norris Group. I'm Aaron Norris. I'm Bruce Norris's youngest son. There's 4 of us kids. Some of us are in real estate, some not so much. My daily job, I'm really on the hard money loan side. So there's one division that does fix and flips. We do about 100 houses a year. I'm more on the business development, marketing, and PR side. So I work with development on our education side, our trustee investors, and hard money. We have multiple audiences. So I'm constantly working with different people, trying to get them through our sales pipeline. I produce our radio show. The radio show is completely free. We have over 350 shows. We've been doing it, I think, for I think this is our 7th year. We won a lot of awards for it, and you'd be surprised who comes on there. The FBI, we're working on the LAPD. We talked to a lot of association presidents. You'll probably get an announcement pretty soon. Because of the radio show, it led to I Survive Real Estate. People don't sort of know what I'm doing. We're soft lobbying. Us as real estate investors don't really have a lobbying group. You've got the National Association of Realtors, the Auctioneers Association, you've got the Appraisal Institute. Everybody's got a really strong organizations to lobby them except us. I Survive Real Estate was a tricky way for us to get those people to come to us, to see 450 people dressed up in a black tie event, a room full of millions of dollars, people controlling inventory. We wanted them to have a positive view of us. We're going back to Washington, D.C. this month, invited by the Mortgage Bankers Association to speak on a panel for them. And so we have a voice. So it's our way of not having to write tons of checks to people in Washington, D.C., but definitely influence their decision and see real estate investors as part of the solution. So if you haven't really knew what we were doing, there is a backstory to why we do some of the events that we do. So the Norris Group is my full-time job. I do the videos every Friday. Well, sorry, if you haven't seen the videos, we do a blog every weekday on news stories that I think are important that you might be interested in. And on Friday, if you just hate reading, there's about a 2-minute video of me covering the biggest news stories. It's just the service that we do for you all. In my spare time, I am part of an award-winning podcast, The Cocktail Party Statement. This is an homage to our marketing professor at UCI, who at the very end of every marketing class would say, if nothing else, at the end of this class, if you were at a cocktail party statement, tell me the one sentence you would say that you learned from this class. So we've probably read close to 30 business and marketing books, and that's the goal, is to try to pass on what these books are about, so people think you actually read it if you were at a cocktail party and had to talk about it. We're actually taping one next week, Blink, by Malcolm Gladwell. I do a lot of nonprofit work for multiple reasons. Number one, I'll go into my long background in the arts, so I'm sort of a product of nonprofits. But when you volunteer your time and serve on a board, you learn to do a lot with nothing. So I serve on a lot of boards, and I end up learning a lot, and networking quite a bit as well. Camp Anza, who knew? I grew up in Riverside, California, and there was a World War II camp to prep soldiers before they went to the Pacific Rim. And tons of celebrities went through this camp. I had no idea. There's a remaining officers club that was dilapidated and boarded up. Once the Moose Lodge moved out, it was just sitting there and was about to be demolished. And I was part of this Leadership Riverside class that the Chamber puts people through once a year, and we decided to take on Camp Anza, and the city worked with us, so they're actually turning in now, they're saving the officers club, and next to it they're building 30 condos for injured veterans and for rehabilitation. So it's a really, really cool project. So thank you. This year I got to do something I thought I was passionate about. I'm actually firing myself from a lot of boards. This was a startup nonprofit that the launch went well, but I'm learning a lot that I just don't have enough time to do everything. But the theater nonprofit I tried this year, and the other thing that I'm really passionate about is something called Give Big Riverside. Give Big Riverside is an online giving day that we started 2 years ago in Riverside, and we're trying to go county-wide. So the goal is to have, last year we had 130 nonprofits show up. Part of what they do is take training in marketing, PR. I'm the president this year of the Public Relations Society of America of the Inland Empire, and I forced all of our sister organizations from the Marketers Association, the Advertising Federation, and the California Association of Public Information Officers to donate some of their time to train these nonprofits. And we raised $300,000 in 24 hours online. So it's not just about raising money, it's also elevating them. In the nonprofit space, they call it capacity building. We in this room call it just running a better business. They like these key terms because I think it makes them get grants or something. But it's something that it's been extremely rewarding working with these nonprofits who have nothing, who definitely don't have any time or money for a marketing person. And even just setting up a Facebook page could mean the difference between having a huge grant and they just don't have the bandwidth or are just scared of technology. So this is on a day-to-day sort of my job as a marketer. And right now I'm also the backup IT guy, which I've got to fire myself from as well. But any point of time, I call myself a professional generalist. I don't know if I'll ever consider myself an expert in marketing because it changes so quickly. I found my MBA to be a very frustrating experience because I was taking these marketing classes and they're like, you're amazing, A+. Well, this is dumb, this is so outdated already. Oh, so it just changes so quickly all the time. Remember, if you worked for a business where you had to have a website 10 years ago, Flash was the coolest thing. People were spending $10,000, $20,000 on Flash websites, and now they point and laugh at you if you still have Flash on your website. It's one of those things. It just changes. How I got into marketing was actually a very long story. So I started out in the arts, musical theater. 5 years old, I used to be deathly shy. You looked at me and I would cry. It was pretty pathetic. I got into theater and it really changed my life. When I graduated from high school, I was going to Cal State Fullerton with an undergrad in advertising and a minor in music. And Dad tried to get me into real estate. I'm like, Pops, real estate. I'd grown up getting paid $0.25 an hour to de-junk his houses. No fun. On a whim, I decided to move to New York City, and I spent 7 years of my 20s doing off-Broadway, touring the world, getting paid to sing, dance, and act, something I would have done for free. Around 2004, back up. No, I'll just go right into it. 2004, getting very close to a few Broadway shows, I get a phone call from Mom. Cancer had moved to the bone. All of a sudden, it just didn't matter anymore. I was just tired of it, and I wanted to come home. I got really lucky. I came home and immediately had to have ankle surgery, healed enough to do a West Coast premiere of a big show out here, and then found out I had back arthritis and a torn disc. So my career was over as I knew it, but I got really lucky because I fell into Wall Street doing merger and acquisition presentations at an investment banking firm called Lazard Frere. So you've got these 70-page decks that are not really PowerPoint, they're really books on research on these companies, and I knew there was something really wrong with me when I sort of liked it. The way that I ended up working for the Norris Group was not even one of those family things. I never wanted to work for the family business if I didn't feel like I had something to bring. After living in LA for a couple years, I was about to go work for JP Morgan right before the crash, actually, doing the same thing I did in New York, but as a manager. And I had a really bad third unexpected interview with a lady who just basically read me the riot act and that she was the boss and I should get over it, and was complaining to Dad, and he's like, why don't you come work for me? Come help me do my market timing research and put my books together, and the rest is history. So marketing the long way around, I ended up getting my MBA. I was one of the only creatives in my entire class. It was very intimidating being in a room with a bunch of engineers, CPAs, and especially people getting their master's degree in a foreign language. That amazes me. I wish I would have spent more time on a second language. A lot of my class, I went to UC Irvine is where I got my MBA, and I'm always amazed with all my small group mates spoke Mandarin, and they'd always apologize for their grammar or their writing. I'm like, you're getting an MBA in your second language. I'm embarrassed. So you're good. So anyway, one of the reasons I love this business is that you bring wherever you are, whatever you've done in your past, you bring it forward. Everyone's in marketing. Everyone in your entire company. You are a walking piece of marketing. So I'd like to cover several things today, but we're going to talk about trends in social media. Just really quick, I just want to get an idea of who's in the room. Whether you consider yourself a sole proprietor, work for a small company or a big company, who has the luxury of having a full-time marketing person on staff? Wow, okay, not very many. So Tonight I don't want to focus on too much of the how-to. I want to try to get you up to speed to where you can hire someone. There's several ways to make money and double your profits in marketing. One of those is, of course, to do marketing and do it well to get your product out there more, or cut expenses. So we'll sort of do back and forth and get a little bit of both covered. I'm going to go into some social media trends locally at the San Diego level because I'm a nerd, and I think you might like it. And Web 3.0, the semantic web. Some people don't really know what that means yet. They still don't know what Web 2.0 means, so hopefully I'll be able to describe that for you. We'll do a quick marketing crash course. We're going to talk about some personal branding and some tips and tricks for doing some stuff on the cheap, or free, which is an even better word. Some of my nonprofit stuff for you. If you've seen this slide and you know the story, don't spoil it. Does anybody know what this number is? So this is the number back in 2007 that appeared on dig.com. It unlocked DVD movies to where people could rip the DVD and make copies without permission. Dig.com is a news story sharing site. So people post a link and the community votes up stories. So the most important stories show up at the top of the website. The movie industry, of course, called their lawyers. Holy crap, our DVD breaking code is on the site. What can we do? So the lawyers called dig.com. His name is Kevin Rose. Take it off the site. Kevin tries to take it off the site. It spreads like wildfire. Within 3 days, you've got 15,000 impressions of the site. There's just no way that he can take it down. And I love this quote from him. You can't take something off the internet. It's like trying to take pee out of a swimming pool. Finally, after a few days of trying to take it down, he just gave up. And this is just the final quote. He said, "You'd rather see Dig go down fighting than bow down to a bigger company. We hear you and effective immediately. We won't delete stories or comments containing the code, and we'll deal with whatever the consequences might be." Why I like to start with this story is that it shows the power of the crowd. This is the movie industry. Billions of dollars a year. Biggest lawyers that you can afford. They lost to the community, you and I in this room, doing something on the web. I think it's very powerful to realize that we have that kind of control now, and you're never too big to fail in the online space. And it's one of the Norris Group focuses a lot on online strategy, and that's where we spend the majority of our marketing dollars. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. There's so many great case studies of companies doing it wrong. Has anybody heard the song United Breaks Guitars? It's another great case study. So there's a band on a United flight looking out the window, watching the crew throw their instruments into the plane. Of course, they get off the plane and the guitar is broken. So they, of course, complain to United, "Yeah, you need to replace our guitar." To which United says, "No." They then proceed to write a song called United Breaks Guitars. And if you can see the number, the last time I took the screenshot, United Breaks Guitars had 13 million views. The most watched United YouTube video had 14,000 views. It gets better. They wrote a book. I don't know if they've given up singing, but they have gone on tour with United Breaks Guitars. And what's the subtitle? The Power of One Voice in the Age of Social Media. So just another hilarious examples, and there's just so many good ones. This one here is a picture of a Comcast technician asleep on the phone with his technician on base, and the customer has taken a video of them, and that one has 1.7 million views. Pretty hilarious. When you try to take something off the internet and it doesn't work very well, it's called the Streisand effect. I think that was back in the mid-2000s when Barbara Streisand was upset that Google was taking the Earth's shots, and she said, "Take it down," and again, it spread like wildfire, so we now call that the Streisand effect. Just so many good examples of people losing. Knock on wood, I don't ever want to be like one of those people. Oh well. To me, why is more important than the how. I really feel like you can outsource a lot of the how piece. It's the why behind it that I really like to. I'm a real big advocate for nonprofits and small business because I think they're the most likely to get screwed if they're not careful. And hopefully tonight I'll share a lot of very embarrassing stories so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Communication in online is no longer a one-way street. Back in the day, you'd have a billboard, you had a commercial, you pushed your message out, and the client came to you. In the age of online, it's completely different. It's a two-way street. They can leave you feedback, and it completely changes the dynamic of how we relate to people online in our business. Let's just go into a little bit of some of the stats of what happens online. and increasing mobile trends. I don't think a lot of this is any surprise. So as far as what we're doing online, or just media in general, sorry, TV is going down, radio is going down, newspapers, magazine. I don't think that's very surprising. What I'm really interested to find out is Nielsen and a lot of the companies that are tracking some of this stuff, they're having a really hard time. How many of you sit in front of the TV, have your iPhone and your iPad going at the same time? Right, I'm one of those guys. How do you measure that? That's 3 devices. If a commercial might be playing, but are they really telling their advertisers they have their undivided attention for that impression, if you will? I don't know. So some of these stats, I'm just not sure. I think it's always going to bend a little bit better than they actually are. What we do online daily, social networks, email, online search, online gaming, and blogs. And on the way down is online radio, online newspapers, and online magazines, which is a little bit surprising to me because I don't even get any more magazines. I replaced them all on my iPad this last year, and I also don't read any physical newspapers. Our last guest speaker for those of you from Orange County, being the president of the Public Relations Society out by us, we had the new owner of the Press Enterprise. Freedom Communications, they own Orange County Register. They bought the Press Enterprise, and they're about to launch the LA Register. When people are running away from the print market, this guy is investing in it, and I'm just completely fascinated. I don't know how it's going to go. He basically, the story that he told, the analogy was something like, well, look at TV. Once upon a time it was free, and now we pay $100 a month. I'm all, but there's like 700 channels. I don't want a phone book on my doorstep every day for paper, so I don't know where he's going with that, but it'll be interesting to see, because print, at least for our business, print and newspaper is dead. The last time actually it was last year, I got suckered into spending $2,000 for a weekend of advertising, just a quarter-page ad, ran Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Guess how many calls I got? Boom! Yes, 0. Awesome. So don't do that. Smartphones. For the first time last year, we went over the 50% mark of smartphones. So out of all cell phones, over 50% are smart. They're not phones, they're computers in your pocket. It's crazy. I have a really hard time. Does anybody else have the phantom buzzing in their pocket? Like the phone's on the table, you're like, oh, wow, that is so weird. I have problems. And I'm so connected to social media, it's always going off on something. But it's really important to know, because if you're a small business thinking about creating an online brand, it's going to change the way that you approach the internet. Share of time spent on mobile. This was something I found online, and it's good because it's very new. And they didn't say what others were, which was really interesting to me, but at least you can see the social media, the communications, the productivity. I think that's more of like the calendar kind of stuff on your phone. And that's others, the 29%. I wish Nielsen would have revealed what that was, but I was surprised social was such a big chunk. I'm on Facebook quite a bit, but I actually have to separate my Facebook accounts because of as an actor, I have a lot of really crazy, weird people, and if I post something about real estate, they make fun of me because they think I'm kidding. And it's also where I've decided to, I've been an early adopter on social media for a long time, so all my high school and college friends are on one account, and then all my real estate contacts are in another. It protects me from any embarrassing photos from my high school days with the step cut. I didn't have a perm mullet, thank God, because I probably would have if I was just a few years younger. But top 10 web brands. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. This was back March of 2013, and there's a few players that went up that I was not expecting. So take a look at the chart. Yeah, Microsoft and Yahoo really increased, and I'm trying to think why Microsoft would have gone up. I don't know if they're accounting Microsoft and Skype are partners, and so is Facebook, so I don't know how they're counting these things. But the real thing to look at here is Facebook. Look at how much time people spend on average compared to all the other brands. It's huge. It's more than double. It's almost triple. For small businesses that don't think social networks are important, one of the things we're about to cover is why it's so important. I'm not even suggesting that you need to be posting stuff every day, but at least locking up your brand and making sure your address is on there, your website, connections and whatnot. Brand squatting. We spoke at SDCIA 4 years ago before we launched tngtrustdeeds.com, and I forgot to buy the singular, not plural. And I got home because somebody said something like, oh, I tried to look it up and you don't have it. I'm like, darn it. By the time I got home, somebody at SDCIA had already bought it. And I called him, I'm like, dude, that's so rude. Like, why would you do that? We just rolled it out. He's like, yeah, maybe someday I want to do trust deeds, and it's free traffic, thanks. That was it. People are rude. So locking up your brands is very important. Anyway, back to Facebook. Notice that back in March, Facebook was 6 hours and 44 minutes, and I think this is average. I don't know if they meant it per week. It's fine. I'm going to just think it's I can't think that's per day. 6 hours and 44 minutes per day. I'm hoping it's a week, but it's gone down. One other thing you're going to start hearing about is Facebook fatigue. There was actually a Pew report put some information out talking about everybody going to spend less time on Facebook. And I love all my friends who are like, I'm taking a break from Facebook, I'm taking a vacation. It's lies. It's lies. One of the things that's going on that's important to know is that relevance is a key word for the next 10 years. Facebook has changed its algorithms to where if you aren't relevant to your network, you disappear. So this is really difficult for small businesses because it means that we have to spend more money on Facebook to get seen, unfortunately. And it's really changed in the last year. I've noticed huge drops in our viewership on Facebook. So if you friended that girlfriend from 3rd grade, have you noticed she's either dead or she just doesn't show up in your timeline anymore? It's because Facebook knows that you haven't been engaging with her over the last year. So your family and your friends that you're actually engaging with on Facebook, it's trying to deliver to you a more relevant personal experience. So while your total time on Facebook might go down, you're more likely to come back and spend time and invest time there because it's more relevant. It's a great user experience. When you spend more time and you come back on Facebook, what are they counting on? They get to deliver you ads, and that's how they make money. So it's really changing across all platforms, and that's what you have to remember. I did update these last night for you. The orange bars are from 2012, and the yellow bars are growth, because I always like to sort of see in age groups how things are changing. So users of social media, this is nationwide US, 90% of the 18 through 29, no surprise. Where are the other 10%? I just don't know. And 65, I mean, are you surprised that 65 and over, we're almost getting to 50% use social media? It's a big growth. So if you're discounting our seniors, our great generation, maybe you should rethink that strategy depending on the product. Women, when we get into certain social networks, I get very excited because I have over 1,000 followers on Pinterest. I think I'm like the only guy there. It's awesome. Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and actually I added Instagram last night so you can get an idea. So the 18 through 29 bracket going all the way up to probably 85%, and then look at seniors. So seniors really like Facebook. When it comes to, oh, I didn't do this by the way, I'll just leave it. I know. Let's see, what was something that I was really surprised that Facebook was that strong in seniors, and then women, where was it? Yeah, Pinterest. Yeah, overwhelmingly women. Get some good recipes. I always get hungry when I'm on Pinterest. And ad spending, it's like I was saying, the print for us, every business is really different. And whenever I'm dealing with nonprofit small businesses or the Norris Group, everybody has a different formula. You can't approach any business with the same formula when it comes to channels. So for us, it's really been true. We're spending a lot more money on display advertising online and pay-per-click marketing, and we're going to go over that quite a bit today because you really have to know the difference if you're going to play the game. Let's get to some real local stats. San Diego population versus Facebook. The only thing I don't know about this is that if people are living in Oceanside and they say they live in San Diego, I don't know how sophisticated Facebook is. I think that's why something might be happening here. This is data from the US Census Bureau back in 2010 compared to, as of last night, what Facebook said the people in these categories are. So right now it says that we're close to 1.4 million users in San Diego on Facebook compared to like 1.3 million in population. So there's crazy people like me who have more than one social media profile. Some businesses are set up as people on Facebook, so there are some duplications. But here's why I do this. So these are just the top 3 most populous cities in the county of San Diego. If you go there, there's the daily circulation, which includes digital, of San Diego's largest newspaper. If you made the assumption that the 47 and over category, is this? Yeah. The 47 and over category was not on Facebook, look at the difference between the daily circulation of the paper and that orange chunk up on top. It's pretty close. So, and those are just the 3 cities. That's only 3 cities in San Diego County. Nerdy, right? Love it, love it. Okay, why I use social media. It leverages word of mouth and relationships. So relevance and relationships, keyword number 2. I won't do the Pee Wee Herman thing because that'll be annoying. It allows me to target market very tailored. I can go on Facebook and say, I want to reach women with an MBA who live in the city of San Diego who likes the book, Who Moved My Cheese? And I can deliver the same ad over and over and over again. I already have some people saying, it's really creepy. Why do you keep delivering me ads? I'm all, yes. It's measurable. Online, I sent a note to the press enterprise after I ran that last ad. I'm like, I just want you to know, zero phone calls, let alone, I don't care how many people saw the ad. Nobody called. Online is getting very sophisticated and allows you not just to track impressions or click-throughs, but conversions, which we're also going to go over because that's really important and one of the things that drives me nuts. I'll share an embarrassing story so you don't do the same thing. Social media allows people to find you and plays into search engine optimization, and I'm going to go over that in a second. And it plays into Web 3.0 and semantic web trends. And let's go over that really quick because I think some people still don't understand who doesn't understand what Web 2.0 is? Okay. So I've been doing this movie analogy for a really long time. For those of you who went to the boot camp, you probably remember this. But 5 years ago, you guys thought I was crazy. And now it's all coming to be. So Web 1.0, if we were talking about a movie theater, this is what Web 1.0 would look like back in the day. It's a simple website. You can't do anything. It's just a listing of the movies that week, right? Web 2.0 is a site like Rotten Tomatoes where you can be logged in on Facebook, you can buy your tickets, you can watch trailers, you can share, you can rate. It's very interactive. Web 3.0 is me saying, Siri, I'm in San Diego tonight. I'm gonna be down there. I'm hungry. And Siri's like, hey, your speaking engagement is over at 9:30. There's a reservation at a restaurant at the beach at 10 o'clock, and there's a late night showing of the action flick that we think that you'll love. Siri is getting to know me, getting to know my personal preferences, and it's called artificial intelligence, not just aliens anymore. There's this whole engineering sector that's dedicated to artificial intelligence, delivering the most relevant and useful experience. And it's a little scary if their goal is probably just to roll it out and make you sort of just think it's all just fine and good. But it is a little frightening because it's going to be that tailored to everybody's user experience. So that's the semantic web. It's just getting to know you on a very personal level and not only know your preferences, but deliver things that you might not even know you'd like, from newspapers to entertainment, and that's how they're going to make their money. Yeah. So, and if you think across all the platforms, there's a ton of platforms that do it. It's not just Facebook, it's not just, it's Amazon, it's YouTube. If you have a YouTube account and you're watching certain things, you better watch what you're watching. It's constantly trying to deliver something to you that maybe it thinks that you'd like to watch. The more time you spend in there, the more likely you are going to be to click on an ad. So let's go over the different kinds of marketing online because there's really 4 major categories. SEM, or PPC, pay-per-click marketing, or search engine optimization. If you're searching on Google, they've changed it to where it used to be like a tan box up at the top and you could really tell it was paid advertising. But depending on your category or your business, it could be really expensive. If you're an insurance agent, if you're in the hard money loan business, if you're a trust deed investor, it can range from $2 to $5 per click. Not impression, well, you can bid on impressions, I don't know why you would, but it could be every time somebody clicks on that ad, you will be charged $2 to $5. Can be very, very expensive. The next category is SEO, search engine optimization. That's the natural stuff. That's the stuff that is supposedly free, but those of us in the business work really hard to rank naturally on a lot of key terms, and sometimes it takes a very, very long time. So search engine optimization is right below the pay-per-click marketing down at the bottom. And that changes constantly. 1 week you'll be in the #1 spot, and if you screw something up and you work with a company that's not doing stuff right, and you can end up gone. This is, does anybody use Bing as their primary search engine? No? Okay. Nobody does, but it's going to illustrate a really important topic. The very first time I did this talk was up in San Jose, and there's 2 more categories you have to be aware of. So how I did this is I went to Bing.com, but I was also logged into Facebook at the same time. Up at the top, I typed in pizza. So in Bing, it's the same thing. The pay-per-click stuff is up at the top. The search engine optimization results was right underneath. And then there's geo-targeted ads right underneath. It knows I'm in San Jose. It knows I'm looking for pizza. So it's going to try to deliver me pizza places where I'm at. Then on the right-hand side, I'm logged into Facebook, and it's pulling in word-of-mouth marketing results, WOM. I had a lot of friends that were obviously talking about pizza. I didn't think it would be that many, but I think there was like 16 results or something of people who were talking about locations, taking pictures of pizza that they had eaten, or suggesting reviews. Let's talk about how important that is. Out of all the categories that you see up there, which would you trust as a consumer? Right. Exactly. So expect more and more that Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, they're going to try to tie more and more social into search results. If you're working with a company that does search engine optimization, I do work with a company, by the way, who does that, and I'm so annoying for them. He's like, you're the only guy who keeps up on this stuff. But I told him, like, it's a good thing you also work with me on PPC, because I think you're going to be out of business on SEO. He's like, why would you say that? Well, it's not because you're bad, but you're in Texas. You're not seeing the same stuff I am. You're not logged into my Facebook, so your results of what you're seeing, how I'm ranking, are completely irrelevant. We have to focus on doing the best job we can possibly do, creating relevant, great content that I think my audience is actually going to absorb and learn and find helpful. That's my job. If anything, where it's leaning towards is really great small businesses. Just because you're not a huge conglomerate doesn't mean that you can't win the online game. Actually, a lot of things and trends that are going on is leaning to the local small business to make sure that you show up. It's just you have to show up and do a few things right. Top to-do list for small biz, whether you're a real estate investor, realtor, appraiser, property manager. Go to getlisted.org and business. The Norris Group bought a building 3 years ago. It took over a year for me. I don't know how it happens. I guess there's these databases all over the world when you move. If you don't update the right one, the bad one updates all the other ones again. It took us a year to finally get it right, to where the past 2 buildings that we had inhabited weren't showing up anymore. And occasionally it still pops up, and I have to hire somebody to go after it. It's annoying. But you'll also see the major categories and the sites that you should be listed that your small company might not be. And it's free. We like free. Google search. Be logged out of any Google accounts that you might have, and just do a search for what you think a consumer would look to find you. If it's termite inspection, just type in termite inspection, San Diego termite inspection, termite damage San Diego. Think of all the words that you think a consumer that's not in your business, you got to sort of dumb it down a little bit. Think about how they might try to find you, and see who shows up. How are they there? What do the websites look like? Are they good? Are they bad? Research your competitor websites. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? What makes you stand out? And dissect your favorite websites, whether or not they are in your category. If you like an entertainment website, what makes you want to go back there? What makes it such a good user experience? Are you on your mobile device when you visit, or are you on your desktop? You really have to think of the range. The Norris Group upgraded to a responsive design on its website over a year ago, because over 15% of my traffic was coming via mobile. And so I don't know what the magic number is, but I had to make sure that depending on what people's devices, wherever they're looking at our website, they have a great user experience. So we have what's called 2 breaking points, and it's called responsive design, when your website adjusts to what devices you're on. So if you're on your iPhone, you're going to see something different than if you're on your iPad compared to if you're on your desktop. And then finally, Google Analytics is free. It's free code you put on your website, and Google will start to help you discover how many people are visiting your site mobilely, how many people are, what kind of key terms how they're finding you, what they're typing into Google to find you, and also who's referring you traffic. You know, if you've got a company that's referring you a ton of traffic, maybe it's a relationship you should be like, hey, maybe we should collaborate in some way. Maybe we can write articles for each other, and maybe it's just a really good marriage that you hadn't thought about. So it's free, and the data really helps you make better marketing decisions. So now time for one of my great embarrassing stories. So I Survived Real Estate is an event that we do once a year where we fly out these leaders from all the different sectors in real estate. We fly them out to California. It's a black tie event at the Nixon Library. 450 people are there. We tape it. We broadcast it live on the internet. We turn it into a radio show. For us, it's my biggest outlay of marketing dollars ever. So back in 2009, when we were still really trying to get this up and running, HDTV, I hunted them down. I found one of their websites. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to totally hook you up. Our site gets 3 million unique hits every month. 3 million, oh, that's awesome, awesome, sweet. Okay, so just for you, something that costs typically $10,000, we're going to give you for 3. Okay, sweet, yeah, 3 million views. I Survive Real Estate, all the money goes to charity. That's a great investment. So I spent $3,000, and over 3 months, I was tracking. Guess how many people clicked on the ad that we had on their site in 3 months? 3. We call that a click-through. So on a website that supposedly has 3 million unique visitors. Unique visitors. That means supposedly they had a lot more that weren't unique. Hopefully they had visitors coming back. So let's just say they had 4 million uniques. So those are impressions. Those are just eyeballs on the screen, and I'm hoping some percentage of the time they saw my ad. And it was real estate related, so it's not like I was, had kitties on a real estate website, which actually might have worked a little bit better. I didn't think about that. Click-throughs is when somebody actually clicked the ad, and I'm really thinking that every time it was me once a month going there like, does this still work? I paid $1,000 per click-through, and this is what's really important as a small business. A click-through does not equal a conversion. A conversion is going to be different for every single one of you. For us in the hard money loan business, when somebody fills out a loan application right now, we're trying to get more sophisticated, but I consider that a conversion. If I'm doing some PPC advertising, some search engine marketing, I'm delivering an ad and the consumer is clicking the ad, going through the Norris group and saying, hey, that's a product that I'm interested in. They fill out a loan application. When they end up on that thank you page, that's a conversion for me right now. Where I'm trying to get is over here where I said, this person here actually ended up being a conversion. Unfortunately, actually doing a hard money loan with us. What that allows me to do is do some cost accounting backwards to find out how much money I'm actually spending per lead. It's very difficult for every kind of business because a lot of times it involves several different softwares. And between Google, we have a customer relations management system. We use so much, and we're trying to streamline, but technology sometimes just doesn't catch up with small businesses. If you've got these big, huge enterprise systems that you can spend 10 grand a month on, it'll do it for you. But otherwise, you got to get creative. But conversions are the goal. You have to decide what a conversion is in your business and make sure you're not getting suckered in because they always lead with the impressions. We've got 3 million unique impressions. I don't care. If you do get something that you're sort of interested in, call the people advertising on their website and ask their results. Just the easiest way to do it. Be like, hey, I'm thinking about advertising on this site or in this magazine. What's been your experience? Or have a friend do it. Don't let them know that maybe it's a competitor and you're thinking about advertising in the same magazine. A lot of people, especially small businesses, will help you out because if they're having horrible results, they don't want to see you have the same horrible results. Technology selection. I'll get at the very end to my 3 favorite books out of all the ones that we've read for the cocktail party statement, but this is one of my favorite things for selecting technology. I work for a lot of nonprofits that they get so stressed out, they're like, we really have to have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Vine as soon as possible. And you're like, why? They're like, I don't know. Like, what's your goal? Like, who are you trying to reach? Everyone. And then the marketing saying goes, if you're trying to reach everyone, you're reaching no one. You really have to know who your audience is. So people, this is the post method. So people's your first bet. When you're selecting people, you're looking at a lot of things, and I'll go over a little bit more about that in the marketing crash course area, because it includes socioeconomic background, ethnicity, location, and their techno-effects. How savvy are they digitally? You know, there's a lot of things that makes up who your target audience is, depending on what channel you're planning on using. And then objectives. What are your measurable goals? What gets measured gets managed. You can spend a ton of money on online advertising and have horrible, horrible results. So you really want to have an idea in your mind of where you want to go and tweak from there if you're not reaching those goals. Strategy in the book is called Groundswell, by the way. It was written in 2005 by some people at Forrester Research, which is a very well-known marketing research company. And it's still very highly relevant in today because it really focuses on the why and not the how. But I love the strategy part because it talks about how do you want your relationship to change with your potential customer. If you're going to start a Facebook page, you have to be aware that people might show up and complain. How are you going to deal with that? Do you have people to manage it? I was helping Susan G. Komen in Orange County with some of their stuff, and they had 3 different people managing their different social media and blogs, and it was sort of all over the place. I'm like, you have breast in your mission. Do you really have people that are dedicated to checking this on a regular basis? Because that's just trouble. That's because there's a lot of bots out there that post a lot of pornography and stuff. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. But how do you want that relationship to change with the people that you're trying to reach? And then technology is the very, very last thing you should ever select. Select the channels that are most appropriate to you, who are going to reach your target audience, reach your goals, and hopefully change the relationship with your customer to something even greater. It's just a great, easy way to remember. Trends for 2014, mobile. We've talked a lot about that. When you have a social media strategy, guess what? It's already all mobile optimized. You don't have to worry about it. If you have your own website, you do have to work on a responsive design at some point if you think that your consumers are visiting via mobile. But if it's a social media that you're locking up and you're putting out information, it's already mobile friendly. There's a great book called Bottom of the Pyramid, and I only bring it up because it's really fascinating to read. The book is about Fortune 500 companies that operate in third world countries where people make $2 a day. Like how do you make money when somebody's only making that much money? And they talk about how they've made it happen. And they also talk about technology, how a lot of these areas, they've gone from having not consistent electricity to smartphones. That's we've taken 30 years to get there, and they've basically gone there overnight, and how that's changing their economies. It's a really fascinating book. Don't count the boomers out. We've talked about that. Hyper-local, hyper-social, hyper-niche. So, as a small business, if you're getting frustrated and you're just like, oh, this technology crap is a joke, I'm never going to be able to win. It's really, technology is catching up and it's trying to benefit you, the small business. They want you to spend money with them, but they also want you to show up. So for me as a hard money lender who focuses all on Southern California, it's 10 times harder for me to rank for all these different cities when I don't have a physical location in San Diego, in LA, in Irvine, in Bakersfield. But if you have a termite business in San Diego, you're going to show up when somebody just types in termite inspection because you're in San Diego, and those geo-targeted ads, you are more likely to show up. So just know that that's sort of trending in your favor, and it looks like it's going to continue to do so. Increased integration of social data, we went over that. And relevant and integrated are my keywords. What was the other one? Relationships, right? I missed the key word. Darn it. Okay. Trends aside, for me, it's about great products, great companies, and great people. I got really lucky at the Norris Group. I love working with my dad. I do have people come up to me every once in a while, they're like, you work with your family, that is crazy. I'm like, I know it's not for everybody, but I lucked out. He is so good at getting out of the way. He knows what he's really good at. I know what he's really good at, and we really highlight each other's work, and it's just really fun. I love working with him. And he's just been really wonderful. He's really well loved because he's humble and he's such a nerd. He does so much research that nobody else wants to do. He's that guy that prints out legislation and with a yellow marker. Man, that is sleep drug for me. Can't do it. Let's go over some marketing crash course stuff. Who's taken an actual marketing course? Just a few? Okay. I'll just do just a few things that might help you decide, because depending on any small business, it's something that you should be thinking about. So if you take a marketing class, you're going to go over the 4 Ps of sort of selecting your target market. I like to expand on one of them a little bit, and there's even more Ps, if you will, if you read other material. But one of them is product. And when you're talking about product, you're talking about brand, design, color, feel, name. It's the actual physical interpretation of whatever you're trying to sell. And brands could be a person, place, or thing. It doesn't have to be, just a business entity. My dad is just as much the Norris group as our physical building. When somebody comes to our building, I mean, look at this hotel. They did a great job renovating. If you go into a Westin, anybody notice the smell is the same if you're in Washington, D.C. or the Orange County Westin? There's goes into branding and a lot in the look and feel of major brands. What does a customer want? How do you meet their needs? How will the customer use it? Who's really good at that? Apple. I mean, he was obsessed. Jobs was obsessed with aesthetics. So product is just really important no matter what category you're in. Second P is price. How are you going to price your product? How sensitive is your customer to product variations? What's your competition doing? What quality, the quality of your product, how can you price it and be competitive? And there's typically only room for one Walmart, one price leader, right? It's the race to the bottom. So if you're going to compete on price, you better win. Or else you better be selling something else. There's plenty of luxury cars on the market. They've all sort of found their own niche. BMW has a very different place in our mind than a Mercedes-Benz does an Audi. So there's always room and there's enough business for anybody, but you really have to take that mind share and decide how you fit into the marketplace. Third P, place. Focus on distribution. How is the customer going to find you? What are the distribution channels, stores? Just how are they going to run into your brand? And what systems are needed to accomplish placement and sales effectively? You really have to think about the entire pipeline, which we'll go over in a second, because it can be a little bit complicated with technologies these days. Promotion is really about the marketing, the fourth P. What channels will be used to promote? Is it print, mail, or billboards, social media, phone calls, word of mouth? We're learning in our business right now that human touch is really important again. I can email all day long. I can do mailers all day long. And sometimes when you give a phone call, people are just like, wow, you called. Yeah, my phone works. And they're so surprised and nobody else is doing it. So there's so many different ways to accomplish different tools, and I like to try to reach people on multiple levels, try to be really strategic and hitting them multiple times. Promotion, time of day. How does your competition market, and how will you get your target audience to be best engaged in the brand? Oh, it's stuck. Let me try this. People. I covered this before. Focused on the target audience. Technically, people can fall in under a few of the other categories, but it's such a big deal in trying to decide. There's just such a broad range of categories, and especially when you're talking about something like social media, if you do have a broad range of people you're trying to reach, you might have a different strategy for different age groups within the same channel. It sounds weird, but on Facebook, I might decide to deliver different ads to different age groups. On the way down here today, I was listening to the news, and it talked about cereal boxes. I forgot which college was doing the study, but they did research on cereal boxes and faces, and more specifically, eyeballs on cartoons or people on the cereal boxes. And cereal boxes, cereals meant for adults are typically up higher, and they're looking straight out because adults like that straight on eye contact. It's trustworthy. And for some reason, all the kids, the Twix bunny or whatever it is, had its eyeballs slightly down, and I didn't get to finish hearing the whole thing, but there's so much research that goes into some of these major brands and what they're doing. It's crazy. So people, technographics, geography, all these things sort of make up who you're trying to market. To me, the more specific I can be, the more relevant, and the more likelihood I'm able to build a relationship is what I'm after. So it's really changed. When you're doing email marketing, if your name is in the title, you're probably a lot more likely to open it. If you see something customized, at least a little bit. I mean, I think we're all onto it, like, yeah, they've got my name, it's a marketing ploy. But if it says hi, comma, don't you immediately delete it now, right? So you have to spend a little bit of time. I think this might be out of batteries, that's fine. Something I like to talk about is, does your assets look good in context? So as I covered before, a product can be a person, place, or thing. But more specifically, what are your assets? For the Norris Group, my dad's nerdiness and his research has really led into things like the radio show and I Survive Real Estate, and it's really our blue ocean. This is one of my all-time favorite books. All-time favorite books. Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chen, Kim, and Renee. Oh boy, I'm not even going to try to say it. I got to see them speak in New York at a Fortune conference that they had, and I fell in love with this book. What do you bring to the table? Passion plus what you're best at plus what drives your economic engine is what you need to be focusing on. So that's the hedgehog concept from Good to Great, Jeff Collins, right? The Norris Group does this all the time. What's the cartoon where the guy's like, squirrel? When he's talking to someone, we have a tendency to do that, and Dad's like, hey, hang on, we need to go back to the hedgehog. What drives our economic engine? What can we be the best at? And what are we really passionate about? Sometimes when you're trying to increase sales, you're like, maybe we should just expand our brand. Let's make purple ones. Instead, just sort of go back and decide, really think about what your assets are. Another really important thing is currency or context. You could have the best cake, but if you're in a colony of people who are gluten intolerant, you're selling the wrong product, unless it's gluten-free. So it really has to match what's important now. How will your new customers, donors find you, explore you, and ultimately decide to work with you? I want to give an example because it's really powerful in planning. This is my takeaway from the book that I'll share with you, and then I'll do a real estate example. They have a ton of really great case studies in the Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's really about finding your assets that match up with the currency or the context and make the competition irrelevant because you've got something different that nobody else has. This is one of my favorite case studies because I happen to really like Cirque du Soleil. Has anybody seen O? I mean, I've seen probably 30 Broadway shows. It's still to this day probably one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen. Probably because I was a gymnast too, but I just can't believe those people do that 14 times a week or however many times they do it. So it's sort of hard, and I don't think, is this going to work with me a little bit? No, it's okay. Hopefully you'll get it on the next slide. Let's see, the Y to the sky axis, offering level. It says low to high. Hopefully you can see that. And on the bottom are all the categories that the circuses compete at. So you probably can't read it, but let's see. So they're comparing Ringling Brothers to smaller regional circuses to Cirque du Soleil. So if you look at the far left, it's at the very bottom, it says price. So Cirque du Soleil decided to go really high on price, but Ringling Brothers and the small regional circuses are really low. So under the eliminate column that you see is what Cirque du Soleil decided to get rid of. Star performers, animal shows, aisle concessions, and multiple shows, so multiple rings when you're at a circus, right? They got rid of those. Cirque du Soleil really married Broadway to the circus and got rid of some of the most expensive and actually controversial stuff. When I lived in New York City for 7 years, it was always a big thing, and there's always the animal activists out when other Ringling Brothers came to town because they had to take the Queen's Tunnel, and they always had to shut it down, and it was always a big story. I actually know the marketing person for Ringling Brothers, oddly enough, and she always has to deal with it no matter where they're at, actually. So under the next column it says reduce. It's fun and humor, thrills and danger. They decided to just lower that a tad, and then under raise they decided to raise the unique venue. If you've been to Cirque du Soleil, they really sort of rethink the whole experience. It's really a Broadway show, but O is very The only reason it's anything like Broadway is because at least it's a proscenium stage, but then they just mess with your mind. Typically they're out in the audience, they're in the aisles, climbing the walls, doing all kinds of fun stuff. But here's their Blue Ocean. They focused on theme. So how many shows does Las Vegas have? Don't they have like 7 Cirque du Soleil shows right now? It's ridiculous. It's huge. Refined viewing environment, multiple productions, and artistic music and dance. Ringling Brothers, they're not in the same category. They just completely shook it up. Let's look at that on sort of the San Diego level. Let's just do real estate investors, okay? So again, wide of the sky, we're gonna go low to high. Let's compare high-end flippers to mid-range flippers to dingbat rentals. I'm a huge fan of Ward Hannigan, and I just love him. So if you don't know what the dingbat rental program is, his joke is that his tenants move in and they only move out feet first. So he specializes in condos or basically studios or 1 bedrooms to elderly or seniors, thank you, elderly. That's a horrible word. Okay, so let's look at the high-end flippers. So if we're talking about quality rehabs, yes, they're gonna spend a lot more money. Location, we're gonna make it in really high, really important areas like the coastal lines, nicer areas. The size is probably gonna be a lot bigger, and the affordability is gonna be really low. Okay, that's the formula for the high-end flippers that are doing those luxury remodels. The mid-range flippers, because I really don't know if there's really that many low-end flippers out here. There's just not that many areas. But they're going to take the quality of the rehab down perhaps a little bit because their appraiser is not going to give you as much credit. If you put travertine floors in, maybe Oceanside, maybe not going to get as much, right? Location, size is probably going to be a little bit smaller, but the affordability is going to definitely be a little bit more important to them. Now the dingbat rental, the quality, probably not so much. You're not as worried. You're not putting travertine anywhere. You're lucky to get granite. The location, not going to be as important. The size is going to be a lot smaller. Affordability is going to have to be way up. And the Blue Ocean, is he's dealing with something that a lot of people just don't even want to touch. They don't want to deal with seniors. They don't want to deal with people that are dealing with Social Security, fixed incomes, because how much can you raise rents? I hear he does though, so shh, don't tell. And one bedroom, that doesn't seem very exciting. I think a lot of people like rentals that they think are going to go up in a huge amount in value. And I think a lot of people believe that a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in San Diego is going to have a lot more fun on the way up. But if you pay dingbat rentals off free and clear, who cares if it cash flows, right? It's just a different model. So I just love this chart because I'm very visual, and it's a way to sort of map out the competitive points and decide sort of where you want to fit and what your Blue Ocean is going to be. Okay? Let's talk about the buying funnel, because has anybody heard the saying 7 impressions before a buy? That's sort of the theory that somebody needs to run into you 7 times before they're like, oh yeah, the Norris Group. What if that impression is really bad? What if you're not on the internet and you don't realize that somebody's talking about you poorly? It's happening right now in Riverside. There's this wonderful new restaurateur in downtown Riverside. Riverside, and a lot of people don't know this, they spent $2 billion over the last 6 years. Right before the crash, they took out $2 billion in funding, bond money, to pay for 35 years worth of upgrades to Riverside. We got so lucky. We are so well prepared moving forward. The new Fox Theater in downtown Riverside, they've upgraded a lot of our streets, our medians, bridges. I mean, it's insane how much work that they've done. But this new restaurateur in town is awesome. Riverside has the horrible habit of restaurant people coming in. It's a strip mall with a kitchen, and they literally do nothing besides paint it. It's horrible. It's not appetizing. Every restaurant I want to call restaurant impossible. Like, please help them just from the design standpoint and forget about the food. It's just, well, anyway. This new restaurateur actually is not like that though. They've spent the last, I think, at least $300,000 to $500,000 on the spaces that they've gone into. It's spectacular. The murals on the walls are beautiful. The design, you feel special. You do not feel like you're in Riverside when you're there. The problem is annihilated for service, especially up front. And customers that are unhappy have the tendency to go to online first. I have a thing, if I don't have something nice to say and I'm not willing to write it down and talk to a manager, I have no business going online and annihilating, especially a small business. It makes me really angry. Luckily, sites like Yelp have started to notice things like that. So it's really ugly because in Riverside they've had the problem where competitors were showing up to restaurants and leaving bad reviews. So if it looks like, actually, I caught somebody doing it. We work with a company called Archive Management. that takes all of our files, and it ends up in this huge warehouse with millions of other boxes. But the storage cost per box is so much less than we were paying for like a storage unit. It's ridiculous. So the service is sick. I love it. I noticed that they were getting ones on Google, and I started digging down, and it was the same company that had left negative reviews for every single one of their competitors. So I emailed the owner, and I'm like, I just want you to know, I'm not going to assume that you were the one who did it, but whoever's doing your marketing has left negative reviews, and I just wanted to, for all your competitors, and I think it's really bad, because anybody looking in, I would never want to work with you because it's a really shady practice. He was so embarrassed and changed it. But it's one of the things as a small business owner, if you hire somebody, you have to know some of the tricks that they do to make you rank higher, and the search engines are getting smarter. So back to Yelp. If an angry customer shows up and he's never been on Yelp before and he leaves one negative review, it's not going to count as much as somebody who's a serious Yelp user and has left 80 reviews all over the world and they gave you a 5. So luckily they're making the irrelevant reviews a little bit less meaningful, which is really, really good. So anyway, in the buying funnel, this is like an old school 1.0 version, if you will, where it goes eyeballs, awareness, consideration, preference, action, loyalty, and eventually they become a buyer. But that's not really where it happens, right? In the world of the internet, you've got peer reviews, you've got people coming from recommendations from friends, which we went over, right, with the word of mouth marketing. If you can get somebody that doesn't know you, but they see that a friend had worked with you, like, oh, I just bought a house from this realtor and they're so awesome, I can't thank you enough. And they had done a search on Facebook and found that. I mean, that's a solid referral. So immediately, if you're looking at the old, I mean, you've just jumped from eyeballs to almost the action category, right? So you've got people coming in from all over the place. So I don't really see it as a linear timeline anymore when it comes to conversion. But as a business, you also have to think about the other tail. So this is another awareness. In the middle is buying, but then after that it's repeat, preference, loyalty, referrals, and advocacy and evangelism. How as a small business can you turn a client? I mean, it's so much easier to keep selling to somebody that already likes you, who already likes your service. I mean, in the hard money loan business, that's what we really want. We want you to come back for more and more and more. That's why we only work with investors and not owner-occupants as the lender of last resort. The likelihood of them to come back for more, not so much. So in the world of the internet, there's so much potential to plug in anywhere along these ways. For me, at the Norris Group, I'm dealing with so many different people in different phases of their investing career, right? So the people who are just starting, we have the education stuff. We have the free radio show. We want to provide a lot of value. I'm a content marketer. I'm also horrible at sales. I'll be really upfront. I hate hard sales. I've never been good at it. I just want to deliver something that you're so happy with and I surprise you that you want to come back for more. We've got the education that hopefully allows people to get really good at what they do to where they start borrowing hard money from us. And hopefully you're so happy there, after a decade you retire, and when you want to be more passive, you do trust deeds with us. But each one of those categories is a different marketing process, and you're trying to feed them different things that keep them happy and engaged in the brand. I market to all of them a little bit differently. So finally, the last piece is branding you. You are a walking billboard. Your reputation is everything. And actually, it's not just you. It's your entire staff. Even the front line. I remember our secretary went in for some training, and she printed out the smile on the face. It's like smile, like when you're on the phone and you smile, it makes a difference in your voice, right? There's another really great book called Tipping Point. If you haven't read it, another highly recommended book. It really talks about discovering what kind of person you are, if you're a connector, a maven, or a salesman. And the book really talks about what makes something go viral, get really popular, who are the players involved, and it's really interesting. I'm a connector. I love throwing myself into situations where I don't know people. I have this very unusual block when it comes to engineers. Like, I would love to, I have all these ideas in my head. I own over 100 domains. I'm like, I can dream up all these apps, but I just don't know where to start, and I don't know what's possible. So I met with this company last week called Riverside.io. They are nothing but engineers. They're like a group. They have meetups on nerding out, like hackathons. I'm like, let's have lunch. They're like, why? I'm the president of PRSA, and we got students who can do this stuff for free for you. Mark it. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. So, but I can ask them questions now, and they think it's awesome. And so it's great. I'm a connector, so I can take somebody like that, and somebody will call me up. Who do I need to talk to? I'm like, okay, talk to this person, this person. And they're just so grateful, and it's what I do. It gets me. I love nothing more than a meeting. I'll be up all night. If it's a good meeting where ideas are being shared, it's horrible. I'm such a nerd. The early adopters are called the mavens. They're the ones that are like my dad, who are the super researchers. He's probably not going to remember everybody's name that he runs into, but he knows his stuff. He's an early adopter. He's the one doing the research. You need somebody like a connector to plug people in. And then you've got the salesmen. The salesmen are the people that are able to help you spread the word. They're not just connectors, but they have a way of convincing people to try the product and to spread the word about a specific service or product. Just a really good read, because I think it helps your approach. If you go back to the Good to Great book and you start thinking about who do you need on your team, it's really important to shake it up. If you've got two people who are nerding out but they don't like to talk to anybody, that's probably not a really good formula for success. But if you can hire a marketing person who's hyper connected, you know what to look for, add them to your team to be that much more successful. So low-hanging fruit for real estate investors, decide your niche and location and own it. Start small. For the people who raised their hand that they have never done it before, I was that guy 3 years ago. I like to be really, really busy. I was serving on 8 boards and associations last year. I've fired myself from half this year. I've already bought 2 rentals this year. I'm trying to buy at least 3 holds a year. It's just really hard because I'm really busy. I don't have time for flips. I'm just trying to grow a business, but you're in the right place. And the last one I bought was from somebody like you, who was a wholesale bird finder. So you never know. Understand your target audience is, and be very specific about how you're going to address them. Understand where they're at, their technological savviness, and so make sure you do your homework on the technology, what's going to work best. Hire help or stay connected. There's a lot of professional associations that do a lot of training. If you're a realtor, your local realtor association has a lot of stuff, education for you. The investor clubs, this is a no-brainer. It's a really great way to network and get some education and just force yourself to be learning every month. Don't forget about colleges and local associations. So as I said, I'm president of the Public Relations Society of America this year. Last week I was actually down here at our Western District Conference at SDIC downtown. I was hanging out at the Gaslamp District listening to people from all over the country talk about PR issues. San Diego is a great area for PR because of the base. They have a huge PR chapter out here, and there's something called PRSSA. It's the Public Relations Student Association, and they're looking for internships. So there's the American Marketers Association, there's the American Advertising Federation. You'd be surprised how many of these organizations have students that a lot of college programs actually will give them college credits for doing a project for you. It's just finding the right school or plugging into the right organization. Odesk and Elance. If you're scared of online, it's good to try some new things. Especially when I'm working with nonprofits, my trick is usually when you're on a board, it's very rare that I am with another marketer on the board. And I say, I will pay for your new website, I will upgrade your logo, but I have complete control and I don't want your input. You will have yes or no to 3 final choices of design, but that's it. And it's 3 designs that I'm okay with either way. But I don't want their input from an attorney who knows nothing about marketing and who's very one-sided brained and not creative. So I'll go in and sometimes I'll use Odesk or Elance. You hire people from all over the world. I have some people here in the United States. I work with some people overseas, and they crank stuff out at night when I'm sleeping, which is awesome. And they think you're magic too. It's sweet. I love it. There's other sites like Fiverr.com. Anybody heard of Fiverr.com? Fiverr.com. For Give Big Riverside, it was great. I hired somebody for $5 in England to dump a piece of white bread, alphabet soup, and spell out Give Big Riverside. And it was the biggest hit on Facebook. Everyone thought that was the coolest thing. I paid somebody $15 to spell out Give Big Riverside in dog food, and they had a dog eat it. But the video they gave me, it was rewind, so it looked like the dog was throwing up Give Big Riverside. But this is stuff that they do at night, and I wake up and it's in my inbox and I have content. So it's just a site where people do things for literally $5 or really inexpensively. It's really fun. Something else that I like doing is 99designs.com. 99designs.com is a competition site. So a logo, I'm on a board of a nonprofit called Community Connect, and you have something similar down here. It's the 211 hotline. It's actually really good for investors to know. If you're ever working on a rental or a rehab and you're running into a person that's in distress and might need a lot more help, 211 is a health and human services hotline. So we had an investor, for example, in Hemet. He's like, this person is homeless, I don't know what to do, she's definitely not going to rent my place, but I just can't leave her alone, I'll call 211. 211 was able to tell her where the nearest food shelter was, where, the food kitchen was, where she could get help as far as staying the night. They are able to give you a sort of a holistic view of what's available closest to you from all the nonprofits in town. They have a huge nonprofit database. Anyway, so I am helping this nonprofit rebrand, and I'm just stuck on this logo. You're looking at an ancient brand, and you've got an established brand, and they don't want to mess with this one symbol, but I have to marry this 211. We have to make sure that people understand that 211 is the most important piece of this brand. So I threw it on 99 Designs. I paid $850, and I had 350 entries. So people from all over the world compete to win the prize of $850. I had 850 designs. I then took the winner from that. I selected the top 10 that I liked. I let the board choose online to vote which one. The one that everybody voted for, I then gave to a local graphic designer and said, make it sing. And he did. So it cost me about $1,000, but if there's one thing that I would spend money on up front is branding. I would be very careful about the logo you select. Be very careful about the name you choose. If you've just spent the last 5 years labeling yourself as the REOshark.com or something, you're just irrelevant, and that's horrible, right? You just have to start over, which it's a strategy, it really is. But I would spend the money up front using something that you're very proud of and a brand you're very proud of. There's nothing worse than seeing a logo keep changing. Like, I thought that was blue last week, and it's pink. Why are you going to pastels? Just be very diligent up front, setting everything up. Like I said, I own 100 domains. I always get these harebrained ideas. The only money I've ever made is for somebody else when it comes to domains. It's ridiculous. I need to get rid of at least half. But it's always very confusing. REDC Auctions had this problem. That's the big auction. Now they're auction.com. I think they spent like millions of dollars on that domain name. But does anybody remember what REDC's? Nobody knew what it stood for, number one. And number two, it was some weird auction site that had nothing to do with the name, and it was just very, very confusing. So if you have an idea for a business name, I would go and look it up. Make sure you try all the different misspellings and variations to make sure it doesn't land on something that you're not happy with. That's also some embarrassing things that can happen. Buyer beware. Be aware as a real estate investor, a realtor, of expensive websites that you're not going to use. Some of them get so cool. They do bells and whistles. They have 3 different sites for you. You can have your wholesaler website, your buyer site, and your seller site, and you know nothing about technology, so you spend like $5,000 on this suite of software that you never use. I hate to see that. And it doesn't mean that the product is bad. It's just you don't know how to use it, and you don't have anybody on your team that knows how to use it. Nobody's going to learn how to use it, and it just sits there and costs you money. I think it's okay if you don't have a website to at least build a LinkedIn profile. A really good LinkedIn profile, and maybe you buy a domain and you just directed it there so people can see. It's a living resume. It's awesome, and it's something. I think more and more people are a little bit suspicious when you don't have a web presence, or if you do, it's really ugly. You know, the realtors with the 5 million calculators on the side, and it looks like they haven't updated their website since 1995. It's just, people care about those things now. Promises of likes, followers, and friends. You can buy followers still, which is strange, but if you sort of heed what I've said about these algorithms getting smarter, if you buy 100,000 friends from all over the world, Twitter is going to be looking at that and be like, why does this guy have like 5 followers in real estate in San Diego and then 100,000 people in Russia and the Philippines? Like, what's going on? So it's going to know, and it's going to mark you as spam, and you won't show up. I've been working really hard for the past 5 years doing all my channels right. It's called long tail strategy. Long tail strategy is exactly what it sounds like. takes a long time, and you're doing it right. And I knew I would eventually win, and it's finally paying off, and it's awesome. It just takes a really long time. Those are my 3 favorite books: Groundswell, Tipping Point, and Blue Ocean Strategy. We're still reading new stuff all the time, but these are always my top 3 that I go to. On Twitter, I'm on Aaron Norris, and that's my email address if you ever have any questions. Every time I talk, somebody tells me about something I didn't know about. I did not know Ted Ricasa. He's awesome with technology. I knew that existed, but I did not know really how I would ever use it, and that's a really, really good idea. Never call from my home phone. I have one of those cell phones that doesn't like to work at my home address, and I'd be tempted just to call a seller from the home. Yeah, I don't want that. I just had a seller leave their dog at the house. Doesn't that suck? He left Peanut at the house. It's very sad. All the neighbors came out, they're like, yeah, Peanut. They didn't want to take him. I'm like, so I have to deal with, oh, so horrible. But any questions? We've covered a ton, and hopefully you got a little bit of tidbits on how to either make your business grow or how to save money. I'm trying to think of anything else to share. But any questions?
Will you share your slides?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So
You
real
have
quick,
my slides, right?
The question was, will you share your slides?
Yes, of course.
I'll show you how to do it later. It's actually on the Meetup website. There's a place where you can go. We're going to share all the slides here, and as well as our YouTube channel. If you missed anything, you can go back to our YouTube channel, and you can watch it on YouTube. So that'll be amazing. Let's give it up.
I didn't know I was being taped. Sweet.
Thank you very much.
How much did he give away? And I mean, thanks again for taking your time to come down and share with all of us. That was just incredible. So I mean, I learned a ton too.
I learned a lot, and especially as busy as he is. Wow, where does he find the time to do that? I guess leverage. There you go.
That helps. And he sleeps at night and outsources too. So
Right.
leverage.
So let me get back. Where were we here?
I like your hedgehog and squirrel reference too, because we're going to use that. Yeah, start going off on a tangent. Yeah, everybody's squirrels.
This isn't working, is it? Oh.
No, I think the batteries are out.
Sorry.
Took the arrow.
So next month, how to find and evaluate deals. Talked about that a little earlier. And again, if you missed any slides, I'll show you where to go. But first, if you guys want to give a quick testimonial on, what you thought about tonight's meeting, we'll edit it and do a little tiny commercial, like 5 or 10 seconds. We'll do some editing. Go see Rob in the back. He'll handle you back there and give you an opportunity to get on our website. So like I was saying, so you at the bottom here, you'll see youtube.com, San Diego Invest Club. Okay, that's where you're going to find all the videos from, I think, about 3 or 4 years in the past.
Right.
So you'll, besides Aaron Norris, you're going to see a lot of other speakers that you might have missed. Free education is right there. If you need to find us, kucanandclark.com. Take a look. Again, the slides will be up there, so if you missed anything. And there you go. So go to San Diego Investment Club, find our club meeting, and then find that More tab with the big arrow. Click on that, and you'll have a drop-down menu, and it'll say Files. That's where you're going to find the slides for tonight. Okay?
You'll find a lot of other material in there too, so some contracts and stuff.
So for those of you who did register on Meetup, you're going to get an email, and it's going to ask you how the meeting was. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
If
please
you
give
could,
us feedback.
Give us some feedback. Let us know what you liked, what you think you might want to hear coming up in the future. What kind of speakers and what kind of topics you guys will want as well. That'd be great. And again, facebook.com, San Diego Investment Club. A lot of people post deals there. A lot of people find deals on Facebook, and that's one place to find either wholesale deals or other properties that you may be able to purchase, or post them online yourself, and then go ahead and find some buyers there. So that we're going to wrap it up for today. We thank you very much. Mark your calendars for May 1st. It's Thursday, first Thursday of the month. And looking forward to networking with you guys.
Yeah, this was the education and fun. Now go back and network. That's where all the deals are made. So hang out with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.